animals. Tonight we've got the second part of an interview I did at ARP Constrictors with Arawin, where he talks about some of the logistics of feeding 300 snakes, some of the strategies that he employs, and how he conditions his females in terms of feeding strategy at breeding time. I found the conversation fascinating. I hope you do too. Tell us a little bit, Arawin, about your feeding philosophy in general. You've got 300 snakes here, and the logistics of that must be terrible. So you order a big bunch of rats. Yes. They arrive. You never have enough rats.
Never. Ever.
So walk us through your feeding philosophy and what you do from a sort of off-season standpoint, and then how you condition your females at breeding time.
Okay, so let's start from the hatchlings. So the hatchlings, I have to make sure there's enough pinkies. No matter what, I source enough pinky rats. Pinky rats are easier to come by. Fuzzies and pinkies, we have always enough quantities. So we make sure they get the food every week.
Right, because they've got less reserves.
Yes.
They need to feed.
So as they grow bigger, most of them will be sold, and those that we hold back, we'll keep them in a separate rack. Then we will feed them once a week. If there's shortage, once they move into 3 to 4 inch rats, if there's shortage, we skip. We feed this half, and then the next week the other half. It's perfectly fine. They're going to grow slightly slower, but it's fine because their organs are matured and everything. Once they start, when you start feeding them well, they'll grow.
Yes, I've noticed that with snakes that I've got from you. Once you take them home and give them a few good meals,
exactly.
they beef up.
Rush. There's no rush actually. There's no rush to straight away pump your babies to get them to 1.5 kilos just to breed them. Because if you wait for the age, say you start breeding them at 30 months, they're going to be the weight that you want them to be eventually, slowly. They will get there at the right age.
Yeah,
so
they might start off slow, but they'll catch up when they need to.
They'll catch up. You could do worse by overfeeding them actually.
Yes.
A fat, obese snake has much higher chance of getting egg bound, egg binding, that kind of things, because there's just a lot of fat layers going on. And it's just not good. It's not healthy.
Yeah.
It's a bad thing. It's a very bad thing.
And the males get lazy when they get fat.
In the wild, they're not going to get a 6-inch rat every week. So it's fine to skip a meal. So once they get to adult size, say like right before breeding, once they're in these racks.
Yeah.
So we still stick to feeding them once a week. But as usual, we will never have enough racks. So we will feed whichever snakes that wants to eat fast. So once I offer food and the snake hesitates for too long, we don't beg the food to eat, we just give. Because they are fine, they know what's best for them. You don't really need to force it or, because if out of 100 snakes, 98 of them are eating fine and just 2 are not really eating that way, you're not doing anything wrong. You know that you're not doing anything wrong, you don't have to be very worried because they have the size, they can go off food for half a year, even a year.
Yeah.
I've never had a single snake starve to death in my collection.
I think that's something that bothers people that only have 1 snake or 2 snakes. It's very worrying when your snake's not eating. You think it's something you're doing wrong. Yeah. So I guess if you've got a room full of snakes, they're all eating.
Yeah, and when 1 or 2 is keeping, it's just that fleur is just off feed. It's fine, they will sometimes skip a week or 2, then they'll go back on feed. I've had like 1 or 2 that has gone off feed for about 6 months, but then she just started eating back as usual after some time. So to those people that have 2 or 3 snakes and suddenly your 1, 2 snakes are not eating very well, what I would advise is check them if they're healthy, if they're not losing weight rapidly, and there's no signs of RI or mites or any issues with them. They look fine, they look perfectly healthy, your temperature is good. You don't have to worry. And this usually happens when they hit about the 1 kilo mark, 800 to 1 kilo mark once, and after that they will usually feed very well fast. We call it the wall. A lot of breeders call it the wall.
And that's when they're about reaching sexual maturity, so it's like a teenager.
Yes, it's like hitting puberty, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So they go through that, it's fine, but if your snake is 200 grams that you just purchased from someone and it's not eating, that's a problem. That you need to solve the problem. Sorry. Yeah, so that's about it.
Tell us what you do in the run-up to breeding season then, because in the off-season you would have snakes that, as you say, if they hesitate, they don't get fed and you move on. In the breeding season you use a slightly different strategy because you have to identify your females that you want to breed.
So when we go about a month or 2 before we start breeding them, we weigh all our snakes, we check their condition. Sometimes weight is not everything. It might be 1.8 kg, and the snake might be very thin and long. So that's not really going to be a very good idea to breed that snake that season. So we see the girth, we check the girth and everything. If it's then we separate the snakes that we're planning to breed this season. We don't breed all our females every year. So once we've decided which females we're going to breed this year, we will offer them smaller meals. We offer one shot the whole room, whichever is in the breeding room, all the snakes. We're going to offer them slightly smaller meal because we're going to drop the temperature here as we have spoke before.
So it takes them longer to digest.
Yeah, because it takes them longer to digest because I use air condition to mimic the colder temperature. So we drop down the size, but we make sure every week there is extra about 20 to 30 rats because when we drop sizes, it's easier to get rats at that size. So what we do, we go one whole round and we make sure every snake gets meal every week. At least once a week we offer everything.
Yep.
So by then we would have already known that, those that are a bit off feed and things like that, we won't really breed them.
Again, it's a question of knowing your snakes and what their feeding response typically is.
But that's the thing I always recommend to people is do not rush into getting, a dark snake that I want to breed tomorrow. Grow your snakes. Always grow your snakes. Then you know your snakes very well, know their feeding habits, you know how they grow, how they eat and everything. It's always best to grow your snakes. So I know every single snake individually. I've bought them when they were babies, or I've hatched them. I've hatched like 3rd generation or 4th generation, some of these. So I know exactly what is going on with them. So that's the thing, we just do the same thing, we feed every week.
So your breeding females, you try to make sure that they get fed every week?
We make sure they get fed every week.
And you'll go through again, and if any look like they still want to eat?
Yes. So because we drop the size, we go double feedings. We can go double feeding because it's smaller. So let's say a 4-inch rat, they can take 2 easily. This is also to stimulate the natural environment where, right before the ball python breeding season kicks in.
There's a proliferation of food naturally.
Yes.
So that's one of the things that you need to condition them to breed. You also introduce the male.
Yep.
And that's a stimulus to starting to build follicles, and usually after a pairing, a female will start to eat really strong.
Yeah. So the moment that they start sensing the presence of a male, then the temperature is right, and then they'll start pounding on rats. So that's why we offer them double feeding. So we wanna basically stimulate the entire process as it would be in the wild. So then they would naturally breed fine. It's not that hard, it's pretty easy, but the key is to start with babies, grow your babies, know the whole
Get
thing.
to know your snake.
Yeah, I have hundreds of messages every month, people asking me, do you have adult females? I want to buy them because I want to breed them and things like that. Do you have proven breeders? And these people have never kept even a single snake before.
Right.
Which I think is a very bad idea. And some people, they just want to buy a pen now and ask that, so if I breed this and this, what would I get? Well, if you have to ask that, means you're not good enough to breed them yet. So you should keep them, know your snakes first, relax, get into it slowly, take your time.
I agree, because there's so much to learn, and it's all in the detail as well.
Yeah.
So for a seasoned breeder that's looking to enhance specific projects, they are already obviously successful breeders, and they're looking for specific genes to further a project, and they will typically look for something that's a little more mature so they can breed it faster.
Not really. Until now, I never buy adults to breed. I always buy.
They're harder to get.
Not really. Well, when we import, we can just import in sub-adults or adults, but I wouldn't sell my good sub-adult holdbacks. Why would I do that? So why would someone else do that too?
Right.
So I prefer to always get them small and hold back from there. Say I want to get into a project, say I need about 3 animals from that project, I'll get 5, and I'll keep the best 3. That's what I would usually do. I would never get adults. I never like getting adults where I don't know the history of the snake and I don't know.
So
why
even for yourself, you like to take the time to get to know the individual snake, learn its feeding responses, how it behaves.
Yes. I would never buy anything over say 400 or 500 grams. Well, if I'm really desperate for it, I might, but I prefer to buy younger snakes. Say something is about 150 grams or well started off baby. I'll always prefer that. When there's 2 available snakes, one is about 600 grams, another one is about 150 grams, I will always go for the smaller one. Because the smaller one will adapt better too.
Yeah, that's another thing too. If you're importing snakes, the younger snakes have more time to adapt.
So always I prefer to import younger ones. let them get used to this condition and grow them slowly. It's gonna take maybe a year extra at most, so it's okay, it's fine to wait. Even sometimes if you, let's say you get in a female that's about 1.5 kg, 1500 grams, sometimes they don't really adapt very well. That's where the problem starts. So you need to give them a long time for them to adapt and start eating and everything, which by then the hatchling would have reached that size anyways.
Right.
And it's cheaper to buy hatchlings, might as well, and I can pick better quality ones. Because people will always hold back nicer adults, nicer some adults.
Yes, by the time they get to that size, they're definitely hold
They've
back.
had the time to choose. So I would always like to pick the babies where I can just pick them earlier. Same as you like to pick your babies when they're in the eggs.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, so that's the thing.
No, that's fascinating, and I appreciate your insights. It's always fascinating talking to you. Thank you for sharing your knowledge. That's fantastic. Thank you. Okay guys, so you've all listened to Arawin feeding 300 snakes. He never has enough rats to feed them, and his strategy is simply, if a snake hesitates, it doesn't get fed. And this doesn't actually do any harm to your snake. It's actually something that they do quite naturally in the wild. Snakes are adapted to have irregular meals. It doesn't do them any harm. They don't get out of condition. As Arawin said, he's never lost a snake because of starvation. Very difficult to starve a snake to death. But part of that philosophy and how it relates to how he conditions his females at breeding time is quite fascinating. At breeding time, snakes would naturally lay their eggs when there's a proliferation of prey, and in order to simulate that in a captive environment, you cannot feed your snakes at regular intervals and have them fully fed at all times. Otherwise you can't simulate the introduction of large amounts of prey and stimulate the females to breed. So I found it absolutely fascinating how he does that, and I also noted that he feeds his pregnant females smaller sized rats. As they begin to grow follicles, there's less room inside the snake for the digestive process, so he double feeds smaller rats at breeding time rather than try to give them large meals, which I thought was very logical. So I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you learned something. I certainly did. So thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.